We have a great report tonight to share as part of my superintendent's report on our work on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. We have joining with us tonight, and I'm looking across, I have, starting at Bedford Road, I've got my two curriculum coordinators who are sharing this year in the work, Kim Schulman and Jen Pico. Welcome tonight. I've got Melissa Brown from the middle school and George Lamar from the high school. As many of you here remember, in 2019, the district made a commitment towards diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and we partnered with our work with the ADL, and that work continues. I want to thank, and that work also overlaps with our social emotional learning work, as we're hearing from many of the professionals, either from the ADL or from the Metro Center. Those two work are joined together. And again, I want to thank Brooke and Dan for your leadership and support in those areas too. So without any more ado, I'd like to hand this over to our curriculum coordinators. They play a significant role in our work. And forgive me, I think it's Bedford Road that's up first. Kim and Jen, are you guys ready?
Ready to go, Mary.
Okay, ready. Take it away.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. Kim and I both just want to thank, obviously, Peggy and Rachel and you, Mary, and the board for giving Kim and I this opportunity to take on the challenge of being curriculum coordinators this year. And we'd also like to thank Melissa and George and all the support that we've gotten from everybody so far. So thank you so much, especially in a year like this. When Kim and I first took on this challenge, we immediately went to Peggy and Rachel and said that this was an area that we wanted to get involved with immediately. And Kim, why don't you let them know where we started?
Sure. So what's been kind of in motion since the beginning of the school year? Early in the school year, the staff had the opportunity to participate in the professional development with the Anti-Defamation League. This was a starting point for Jen and I to look further into the ADL resources. That brought us to November, where we where we kind of developed our curriculum map. We had department meetings and discussion plannings with our parent committee. In December, we partnered with the PTA to set the stage for a school-wide DEA project, as well as planning to incorporate cultural arts programs highlighting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that leads us to January, where under the leadership of Rachel Hunger, we have formed and held our first parent committee meeting to secure the homeschool connection for this initiative.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Next slide. Thanks.
So we found this gem of a curriculum guide that the ADL put out called the Anti-Bias Building Blocks. And when I got my hands on this, I think I went running into Rachel's office and was like, look what we have. The ADL has this great curriculum that is K-5. It's comprehensive. It aims to really create a safe, inclusive, respectful school environment where kids can sort of explore these social issues that are going on and discuss these things that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And it does this in a series of 5 different units. One builds upon the other so that you're not just sort of jumping in at the end point into a really uncomfortable conversation or topic. You build this environment first in an age-appropriate way. All of the lessons really let the kids explore these topics, and then it gives them the empowerment to be able to go back out into the world and sort of deal with it on an everyday basis, and also to kind of make a change in the world, and realize that there are things that need to be changed. So it's a very powerful curriculum. We're so excited to use it. You can go to the next slide, Veronica. Oh, this is my favorite slide because I'm so excited about this. This is the project that Kim alluded to earlier. So one of the fundamental beliefs of the ADL curriculum is that students really need to have a strong sense of their own identity first. And once they do that, then they can start to recognize their differences and then celebrate that. So I don't know if anyone else knows the book of Only One You, but it's a beautiful story. And this book is being used all over the country to sort of launch projects like this. And what the schools and the teachers and the staffs are doing are sharing this book with the students, and then having the students each design a rock that represents their individuality. And so all of these individual rocks are celebrated in their beauty, but when they come together, you can see the beauty of their collective differences. So we went to Peggy and Rachel, and they went, and we were all in agreement that this was something that we have to do at the Bedford Road School to really launch all of these lessons this year, especially this year, in a year unlike any other year. To have the students create something like this and leave such a mark on our school will just be a memory forever.
Nice.
Building on our school-wide project, each grade level will have a home school project based on the ADL curriculum. These projects will be planned by the parent subcommittees in partnership with the classroom teachers. So kindergarten will be reflecting on the meaning of family. First grade will do an identity study. Second and fourth grade will focus on their culture, and third grade will be reflecting on their heritage. Next slide.
And Kim, if I might add, that isn't dissimilar to the work we have done in the past, where we partner with, the classroom parents in terms of certain themes and support. So being able to marry this ADL curriculum with the structure that we already have in place is really terrific.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Do they have ideas for you for these different projects? Is that part of the curriculum, or where are the parent group and teachers coming up with these projects?
So we have to give some credit to one of our board members, Jill Grossman, who sent us some ideas that she had been shared with her. And we then shared them with our parent committees and our curriculum coordinators. And that's how they determined which theme would go with each grade level.
Cool.
Sorry, Jen, I cut you off, and Kim.
And I would just say that those ideas were actually things that I experienced directly as a parent in my child's previous school. So that's great.
Jill, they align a lot with the state document from SED.
Yeah, this is wonderful.
You could go to the next slide. In addition to these, new projects that we're partnering with the parents and the families and the Rock Garden project, I personally have had the opportunity to be in a lot of different classrooms in the positions I've had at BRS in the last few years, and working with Kim and Peggy and Rachel. You can really see DEI in classrooms at BRS all the time. And the most simplistic level, look at our classroom libraries, look at our character education program, and look at our writing program. And those are also 3 areas that Kim and I happen to be targeting this year that we're really diving deep into.
So where do we go from here? We have an exciting few months ahead of us that Jen and I are really looking forward to. In February, we plan to launch the Rock Project and meet with our parent subcommittees, which has just gotten off the ground today, in fact. In March and April, we plan to have teachers and families working on the ADL homeschool projects. And then in May and June, we plan to celebrate these projects, as well as hoping to get the Rock Garden installed. So we have a busy few months ahead of us, but we're really excited about that.
It's great.
Where are you planning to put the rock garden, Peg?
Okay, don't answer that, anybody.
Okay.
We will be coming, coming to the Board of Education. We have a few ideas in mind. We've been working with Steve Chamberlain to see what's possible, and then we will come to the Board of Ed because it involves cement.
Okay.
Well, my
We
part of
put
my
them down, we
question.
don't want anyone to take them. Just keep that in mind when we give you our ideas. They have to be down in the ground.
Yeah, well, part of the reason I'm asking is I'm wondering if this is an initiative that you'll do each year, or you know,
We would
for
love to
for
see
the
it grow.
incoming K to be able to create their own rocks and add them somewhere in the rock garden at some point, or?
Right. We would love to see it grow. If we want every single child at Bedford Road to remember this year in two ways. One with the rocks, and that was their very, very special thing, and one the year that they had. Our plan is to do it outside. We were going to do it in the garden, but that's not a view to the community.
Mhm.
And we can't even fit 600 rocks. So we're going to leave a lot of space around the perimeter to join and keep going year to year.
Okay.
I'm laughing because I told them don't mention that because we haven't asked.
Sorry.
I'm sorry for bringing it up. I just was curious what your thought process was in terms of you know, incoming K classes,
Yeah.
you know, contributing as well, or growing
Yeah.
it, or, you know, what
Yeah,
the
I
what the
think it's gonna
plan
get
was to
really- I think
house
it's gonna
all
get
these
really
rocks.
big. It's gonna become very big. I'm glad we have a very big school.
And I just have to say thank you to the PTA because they immediately gave us support on this project and
Great.
actually helped us to be able to purchase the books for all of the classrooms. And they're going to be helping us out with the rocks. I mean, a huge help. Great
Yes.
support.
Another reason for everybody to join the PTA because of all of the benefits that all the children get from partnering with our curriculum coordinators and our teachers and everything.
And it's
Gotta
a
plug that
wonderful
PTA.
extension, right? And it's a wonderful extension of your character, you know, the Bedford Road Character Education Program. And clearly, to dovetail off what Emily said, a clear show of commitment of community and children working together for a greater goal. So it's just exciting. So thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, ladies, for taking on the curriculum coordinator jobs. Seems like you've jumped right in with both feet, and your energy is palpable. So that's great, and we appreciate you taking this on and really, you know, moving forward with it without much pushing. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
So I can't help but notice that, you know, when we talked about the wonderful rock garden, if those of you have been in the middle school this year, it's a little different. You will see, you know, a map of the world and identity, a similar theme, but it transitions to a different age group. So Melissa Brown, let's talk a little bit about our wonderful middle school.
And thank you everyone for allowing me to speak on behalf of our middle school. One thing I have to say is it's always great to have all three schools together. And I'm excited hearing all the amazing work at the elementary school, the future empowered BRS students that we'll be getting one day through that new ADL curriculum is going to be amazing. So thank you for all your hard work at BRS. And it's so important we travel together and we envision and align our curriculum around the DEI enriching material, resources, creative ideas, that we do it together in partnership. So thank you. What a wonderful presentation. I also want to thank Mary Foxalter, Mr. Mara, and the Board of Ed, all our principals and curriculum leaders and colleagues for having me present the work of so many. It's an honor to represent everybody, and especially on such an important topic, not only important, but powerful and extremely personal. The topic we're broaching tonight is personal, and every individual has their own unique lens as we talk about this topic. So I wanted to mention before I begin, I won't be digging in to the social emotional learning specifically tonight, but I was so happy to hear Mary reference SEL because we talk about it a lot. While I won't be digging in, they do overlap in the wonderful work of our school counselors and Marianne Flatley and so many in our building day in and day out. They do overlap. So it's not just one in isolation without the other. They go hand in hand. So what's different tonight? I wanted to share with you. I think more than anything, I wanted to convey to you tonight that there's a level of awareness like never before around DEI. We're thinking, we're talking, we're asking lots of questions, and that's both from a teacher lens, a student lens, an admin lens. This year, our middle school diversity, equity, and inclusivity work began, and as you'll see from my flow map, with partnerships and experts in the field. Over the summer, our school principals, Joe, and I know Joe Palumbo, Don Mara, they attended, and Peggy Galati, I believe, attended the New York City Leadership Academy. We're so lucky to be enriched by Jill Grossman, who has poured her heart and soul, who's a very passionate, who's passionate about the subject, and she brings so much richness around the subject to all of us. So thank you. In addition to our staff received training from the Anti-Defamation League, just like BRS this fall, and our teachers walked away with a deeper awareness of DEI, belonging, diverse groups, identity, acceptance, inclusivity, inclusive behaviors were some of the topics that our staff explored, and they explored it with much guidance, which is so, so important. We also had a group of our 7th grade student leaders work with the Human Rights Institute for middle school leaders, and those students will serve as peer-to-peer trainers for our entire student body. That's grades 5 through 8. They're currently in the midst of preparing skits based on typical real-life microaggressions, and they will video record the skits probably over at the high school. So thank you, Joe, and your team over there. And they'll present them school-wide. It's certainly, they will serve to educate our entire building on microaggression. And we can't wait to watch the authentic student-centered videos that they create. Well, we are also using a very common framework throughout the year that came out this year to celebrate diverse groups during designated months. And it's the first time I think we're digging in with incredible depth, both at the middle school and high school. The framework came out of a joint high school and middle school social studies and English department meeting. And at that meeting, it was decided we could do more, and we'd do more to celebrate and acknowledge various groups across all disciplines. We didn't want it just in the humanities. We didn't want it in one sector, but I have to say that the high school and middle school partnership is so important, and it's so important to string the curriculum throughout the K-12, which is a passion of mine, and it's also what is best for our children as they grow. And it can look one way at BRS, but you see the developmental progression through the rocks become our map, our world map at the middle school. So at this point, I just wanted to share some of the efforts that have begun and some that we will get to as the year progresses. That framework that I spoke about, which I believe the high school is also going to embrace, is going to pull all the disciplines into our acknowledgement across multiple groups. And we've already begun our efforts to highlight exceptional individuals such as Black History Month, Women's History, LGBTQ and Hispanic Heritage Months. Our hallway rooms will fill. We'll have music in the cafeteria, we'll have quotes, announcements, we'll have display boards, we'll have slideshows of the talented and exceptional individuals who excelled and made great impacts, whether as artists, mathematicians, poets, scholars, musicians, leaders, activists, and more. So we can't wait to fill our school, fill our halls. We've begun that process already, and I have some slides that I wanted to share. So if you could please just share our tree map of each grade level, 8th through 5th. We're in each grade level, I just gave you a snippet of what's happening. Please know there's so much more than I could represent tonight. Our DEI related curriculum, teachers are exposing students to rich literature, documentaries, current events materials, and a lot of what I consider the most powerful and important are discussions about some tough issues around intersecting historical events. Perspectives from African Americans, Indigenous Americans, Chinese Americans, Syrian immigrants, and women, to name a few, not all, have occurred in our classrooms. So to give you a few examples, what's this look like? 8th graders explored modern day immigrant groups, Syrians in particular. Some of our students explored and expressed tremendous empathy for the adversities that immigrant groups face overall. So it wasn't just historically who were the immigrants that immigrated to the States, at the turn of the century. It was what are our modern day immigrants experiencing today? And then having deep discussions about what they endure. They also explored Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb. So current events is very important to our classrooms. From the inauguration, the current inauguration, the kids loved it and were really inspired by it. And most importantly, by her and the strength she showed on that day. Veronica, if you could just go to our next slide. If you could just skip to the following one, I created a collage that I wanted you to see and highlight. Our 7th graders are exploring Bisa Butler, and if you can see, there's Miss Weiss in the center, and a project that she's doing, which is based on the contemporary African-American artist. They're examining her works from a political perspective, as well as creating portraits, just as she spends her time doing. The 6th graders are participating in a global Read-Aloud, and like many classes around the globe, the global Read-Aloud has been fun. We adopted it last year and are continuing it this year, and students around the world read a common text. This year, we selected Prairie Lotus in 6th grade, and it's a historical fiction novel based on the 1880s, and the main character, who's a Chinese American immigrant, she experiences great prejudice in a small homogeneous Midwestern town. So you can imagine in the 1880s what she endured. It's done in a developmentally appropriate way, and that's key for our teachers, selecting texts that hit real heavy issues, but in a way that is developmentally appropriate. And we spend a lot of time, have a lot of conversation around that. 5th graders are taking a deep dive into the Holocaust through their core novel, Number the Stars. Discussions around respect for humanity are common throughout all their classrooms. And don't forget tomorrow's Holocaust Remembrance Day, which began through the United Nations. So in my all remote class, we have a wonderful parent, Ali Sarabin, who's going to come in and share some of her personal family history with parents who left Auschwitz and made it to the States. So we're trying to tap, and I know the 8th grade does a lot of work with the Holocaust for Human Rights, and they have been for years, bringing in presenters, Holocaust survivors. So this work will continue as they move through the grades as well. One thing I needed to emphasize to you tonight as I start to close is that there's a real emphasis on responsibility, and that's the responsibility of each student as individuals to be upstanders. We talk a lot about that in the middle school, to be upstanders. I'm sure they do in the other buildings as well. And how important it is that we can make that difference. So Veronica, if you could go back to the circle map, I wanted to share some words. I met with a few of our 7th graders because I wanted to share their biggest takeaways from their experiences with the Anti-Defamation League and the work that they did. So all, thoughts, phrases, terms that they had shared with me, I splashed onto a circle map for you. But there's a few I pulled out for you that struck me, and I wanted to share them with you now. Diversity matters. I think differently now. We can educate people. Think before we act. We can be upstanders. Upstanders can change history. So in closing, these students that I spoke with personally were empowered, and it was very, very clear to me. They spoke with passion. Our work to educate our students will help to shape the stories that those kids live to tell one day. And so we hope that this will positively change the direction of history, because our kids can, and we're teaching them that they can. So our work at Pleasantville Middle School is ongoing. We look, we reflect, we talk, and we try to make it better every year. There's always more that we can do to extend and deepen understandings on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our work's never done, but I'm finished now, and I thank you for the opportunity to share all that I could in this window of time. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And I know I'm going to hand it over to George. He's going to share their amazing work at the high school.
So just before we start with the high
Thank you, Melissa.
give
That was
a
great.
quick
Very inspiring.
reminder to people. So I really want to give Dawn, Adam, and Melissa and our teachers at the middle school a great shout out, because we never backed away from having these core novels, which are challenging novels, and all of you know the stories or comments from certain people saying these are tough novels, these are hard novels, these are hard books. Why do we continue to use them? But that we all felt that they were super important. Esperanza Rising, Number the Stars, they were all important books in terms of character education, and they clearly are part of a comprehensive diversity, equity, and inclusivity conversation. So I'm so glad we did that. But I think I'm pretty sure Emily and Angela remember when we met with some of our students at the end of last year, they often go back to Eastern, Western Hemisphere days. And actually I had a parent who had a lengthy conversation about me. These are really wonderful days, but we should build on them. We should expand them because they speak about literature, they speak about culture, they speak about getting to know a different background. They allowed family members or families and individuals to come in and speak about their own individual experiences. Mm-hmm. So it's something to keep in mind. I Emily, if you remember, to some of our students.
I ran a couple,
but they wanted more of it. Right.
I ran a couple of the rooms, and yeah, we kind of made it just like fun and a little snack and a real quick in and out. It was just frenetic with everything going on, but totally room for deeper content.
Right.
Totally.
Right.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Melissa, and I agree, Mary. Partnerships has been key for us too. Mm-hmm. We're in year 6 of the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center partnership with them. Year 1 with the NYC Leadership Academy with a focus on culturally responsive leadership, culture, capacity building, coaching. Rachel and Joe and I participated in that a few months ago. Right. We're in year 2 with the ADL, starting the NYU Metro Center in a few months. So we are thrilled with all the partnerships that we have, which have really springboarded us into action, but also a shout out to the teachers who really did a tremendous job in a few years ago already shifting some of the literature in terms of what is accessible to kids in lit circles, while maintaining some of those core novels that you mentioned, Mary, but also giving it a little bit of an infusion of some different texts that our teachers felt would amplify the voices of authors of color and allow for a little bit of a more diverse experience. So we're really happy with where we are. We know we have a lot more work to do, but thank you to Melissa and to our whole staff. very pleased with where we are right now, and looking forward to the work that continues.
Thank you all. Really amazing. Melissa, that was inspiring. Don,
Yeah.
all of you, just thank you for
The
everything you're doing.
circle map
My pleasure.
with all the comments has a lot of impact.
Yeah,
That, you know, I think differently now.
exactly. And, you know, I want to springboard something that I'm glad Mary brought up the literature we're using and the conversations around the K or Esperanza Rising, or even, you know, any text, and high school teachers and even elementary, it doesn't look the same. If it's the same text you had in a room 15 years ago, the teachers teaching it today change, and we change our thinking around the text. And so it never feels the same. Your conversations evolve as time moves forward. So they don't stay static or stagnant. My point is that we're talking about equity, we're talking about differences, but we're talking about it in the year 2021. We're not talking about it what it was like in 2010, even if they read the novel Number the Stars in 2010. And that's really important to be cognizant of that. As these books remain, and quality literature. Anyway, I thank you for those in the past who've kind of said, we're going to stick with these texts because we think they're good for kids.
Mhm.
But we're also open to looking at, you know, new voices in different ways to the same themes, which I've seen happen too. So, which is great, which is
Yeah,
great.
going back to the circle map, I liked individuality is important.
Yes, yes. And that ties into our BRS theme, right? So it's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. High school.
Mr. Millar.
Right, let's go. So one of the themes I hope you're seeing tonight when we look at DEI education, at least sort of what I'm taking from it, is that some of the foundational work has always sort of been there. But what we're really doing now is being very intentional in defining what we do and how we do it and how we can make the experiences very meaningful. You know, when I think about what the work is being done in the elementary school, and I think about sort of Bloom's taxonomy, I'm listening to them speak about their projects, and it's about getting the students to kind of understand at a very foundational level what is happening and what's going on. You know, when you look at the middle school, it's really about applying those ideas and starting to analyze it. And then when you get to the high school level, what we see is tremendous creativity. We see tremendous evaluation of our programming. We see the students really taking the lead on a lot of the different experiences that they're going to have. And we see teachers giving students choice and ownership over those ideas. So, you know, when you think about everything that's happening, I did my best to put some of it in a tree map for you. So when you think about our objectives, you know, we're really trying to, like they're doing it to some of the younger levels, expose students to different ideas and different cultures and different backgrounds, you know, understand and celebrate that everybody is unique, understand the human condition really through a global lens. You know, how do their experiences shape their culture? How does their experience lead into their beliefs? And what can we do to be reflective and sort of understand, you know, what's happening? As teachers, you know, when I discuss with the different departments and different teachers throughout the school, it's about being reflective and responsive to the student needs. You know, what are they asking for? What are they experiencing? And how can we now take our curriculum and sort of shape it and fit into what's a little bit more meaningful? You know, what we're starting to see across the curriculum is different ways of approaching, you know, to old content. We're seeing in the world languages more contemporary books focusing on cultures of Spanish speaking areas outside of Spain and Mexico and Puerto Rico and South America. In the English departments, each grade tries to read a book and focus on a core theme of dignity, equity, and inclusion. We're seeing more nonfiction works. We're seeing more example poetry. We're seeing lit circles and really giving students ownership about what they do and what they learn and how they learn it. In the social sciences, we're really looking at how we can take a formerly Eurocentric viewpoint and put a world spin on it. So, a real concrete example I can give you is when we study imperialism. 10, 15 years ago, it was a very Eurocentric, how are Europeans going out and conquering the world? And now that lens is shifting to the use of primary and secondary source documents of what has the experience been? What has the resistance been? How does that shape world affairs today? Even in some of our soft sciences, our AP psychology and sociology, looking at how culture affects different gender roles. What are microaggressions and how do those microaggressions play out on a day-to-day basis? What are stereotyping threats? How do people conform and why do they conform? In AP World History, listening to the unheard voices and spending some time really taking a deep dive as to what's going on. And then the creative piece is allowing the students communicate, through argumentative essays, through Socratic seminars, through online discussion boards, through old-fashioned trifold posters, through flip grids. Everything that we're trying to do is to get the students to express themselves creatively, allow the students to have voice, allow the students to take ownership. We're also trying to integrate some more student learning experiences. Last year, we did a field trip to the Jacob Burns where we watched a great video on criminal justice reform with the seniors in the AP government class. We had a Q&A. We did a letter writing campaign, and then just some other interactions with other local school districts as well. So on the ground, we're really starting to do a lot inside of the classroom to integrate this in a really purposeful way. You go to the next slide, Veronica. So it doesn't stop like inside of the classroom. Outside of the classroom is really where we see that creative piece of DEI and the students really taking ownership over it. Just like the middle school, it starts with some partnerships. We've been partnered with the Holocaust and Human Rights Center for years now. We've been running an Upstandards Day at Pleasantville High School, I want to say for 8 years, where we always try and focus on a different theme, where we try and raise awareness. Some of those themes in the past have been women's rights, it's been human rights violations in African nations, it's been fundraising campaigns, it's been looking at homelessness, just really try to support a cause. We've also done significant work with the ADL, both for students and for staff. Again, focusing on those themes of identity, because as students age, their ideas change, their perceptions change. And it's about having those open and honest conversations of, I'm different now at age 16, 17, 18 as I'm entering the real world than I was at 5, 6, and 7. And allowing students to voice their opinions and voice their individuality, but then also try and bring the students back together and try and link common bonds of unity. Our Steps A program really focuses on interpersonal effectiveness, how students can be patient with one another, how students can be reflective of one another, how students can take ownership over their words and how their words impact others. And we've also started networking with some other local universities and high schools in the areas. We're trying to open up the doors to more educational conferences. That's been tough with COVID. We're trying to find some more online webinars and events to get the kids involved with. And then our clubs and organizations, and this really is some of the lifeline and really the energy of the school. The Sources of Strength program really is one of the foundations of the school, working with the BTH, working with Pleasantville Strong to give students opportunities to really become leaders of the school. And that is tremendous. When we think about the mission statement and what's written on the building, enter to learn and go forth to serve, this component of DEI is now essential to students being successful in the future. And they have to practice the skills and they have to integrate the skills on a daily basis. And that's the expectation. And we're doing our best to support students in that endeavor. Some other activities we consistently do, and guidance has done a great job, and so has Marianne Flatley. Melanie Siakolo started the Students Demand Action Club, working on voting initiatives and really hammering home their student civic duty, letter writing campaigns to Congress, and then simple stuff, wellness tables, no name calling week, really core foundational stuff to DEI work. And then our leadership and trainings, again, leadership role for students leading other students. it's one thing if I give a presentation, or no offense, any of you give a presentation on DEI. It's a lot different when the students give the presentation to each other and they have that reflective piece and they're able to listen to each other and truly evaluate and respect each other's ideas. So we see that peer leadership take place with our 8th grade orientation. The Mechanical Transition Program has been super successful the past several years. It's been excellent. Project Adventure, then some other clubs and organizations. We've seen International Day of the Girl, the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference. Some of our teachers attended PBS trainings over the summer and anti-bias and anti-racist training, as well as some summer institutes as well. So we're consistently looking to broaden our horizons and take in more information. I think what's really nice about looking at some of the stuff that you see here, it's the culmination of what's been going on in Pleasantville from students when they walk in the building in kindergarten and proceed through BRS and into the middle school, and really they're becoming leaders and they're really expressing their own voice. So it's about providing that real world experience and really blending it for the kids' future.
It's really great.
Thanks, George. I can't say enough about all that, is taking place in the building and the faculty work that's being done in our students. Certainly we started this year in a very different way. We don't see kids as frequently as in person as we would like, but we've been able to connect in many different ways, and empowering students to play a meaningful role in this process, I think, is our biggest, leverage point for success. I know that we've been talking a lot about the literature in our classrooms, across the continent. I'm really excited for our upcoming partnership with the NYU Metro Center and the Tri-States Consortium as we do a full program review, like let's say an ELA. And the other piece is, you'll notice that we've really tried to make this part of the curriculum, so it's not something, that we're doing on a particular month or something that, might go away down the road. It really needs to be part of what we do every day. That's, the feedback that we've received, from students and families. That's, what I've read in the literature in regards to being the most effective. So, we're really excited to be on this journey. I'm even more excited for those next steps. We would have loved to have partnered with the Metro Center a little bit earlier, but they're a very busy organization at the moment. So we'll begin that work, in the spring. At that point, we're going to be creating some committees at the high school that include students and families, and looking forward to a continued growth and success.
So it's a really fantastic presentation of all the 3 schools. I mean, a couple of years ago when we started to talk about it, it was like, what are we doing? And now you have this giant roadmap that is just going to keep growing. Now you see what you've been doing, what you did, it really is very, very impressive.
I think
we really need to
special-
make
oh,
sure.
sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, George. Mr.
I
Lamar.
think what's really special is the faculty is extremely open to some of these changes and shifts, and they're willing to take risks and have conversations
Right.
that maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that wasn't a path they were willing to go down. And I think we're relying on each other. Melissa mentioned we held a joint social studies humanities meeting, and we're doing some interdisciplinary projects based off of that. We're listening to the students and trying to offer courses that they're interested in and that can really drive home some meaningful change. We're not trying to just do things to do things. Like the work that's being done is very intentional. It's very thought out. And we're critiquing each other along the way. So whenever somebody has an idea in the high school, they're looking to introduce a new piece of literature, we go through a lit review now to see, what is really the purpose and how are you going to integrate in the classroom? And what are some of the uncomfortable conversations you might enter, and how are we going to navigate through them to make sure all students' voices are heard, not just one perspective?
Absolutely. I mean, George, I kind of remember when you started. My son was, I think, in 9th or 10th grade when you first joined Pleasantville. So just think in these 9 or 10 years, how the conversation of the students has changed. What are they talking about? And that drives us.
And I do have to give a huge shout out, to dovetail off what Emily just said too. Joe Palumbo, Greg Fondy, and George Lamar, and the counselors and the staff at the high school. We navigated some pretty serious issues over student depression, over graduation gowns, over a prom, and it was handled with a total emphasis on student voice and agency. So a tremendous amount of credit needs to be given to the leadership team at the high school for that. And this work continues. And your report tonight, George, is just emblematic of it. The journey is forward. The work is hard. We are not perfect. We will stumble. We will pick each other up. But it's about the impact of our work over the intention and making sure that all voices are heard. And a huge shout out to Team High School for tackling on some pretty challenging things over the years. And we're excited about the next stage. So I just couldn't be prouder. Just couldn't be prouder.